So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the second tabernacle services, where we find the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Mashiach laid waste for many centuries. As we read it in Yeshayahu the prophet, understandably, the Hamashiach ben Yosef was quoting from these prophets, and obviously Yeshayahu was very active during his time of service. And as we read the actual information coming from the newspapers around the world, we find then the new system, the BRICS system, is becoming more and more influential in world's market. And the Chinese system obviously is related with it, and it already has shown its power through Alibaba, one of the most powerful trade system via internet. Not only this, you find the information why the Arabs have reduced the price of crude, so then the economy of China can become even greater. So when you make a line of these actual events with the 23rd chapter of Yeshayahu, you begin your quest of understanding the identification of some of these countries related with the merchants of the earth, later on found then in the Apocalypse or then Galah. At this point in time, it is extremely important identifying some of these places, so then the language used, or the future language, then its original form can be then evaluated. Many people, they do their own evaluations based from outdated information because they do not understand a section of the reflection of the prophecies of Daniel. So when they began to read the information from Daniel and they read the Revelation, they began their quest by being mystical as far as the information in the Apocalypse or then Revelation. They simply do not understand that there is a link directly from the time of the restoration period of Daniel, related mostly with the trade of his time and what he then from heaven did understand, the projection of the prophecies he lived then in the future, when then exactly the same principles were then placed in the future during the time of the restoration period. So then, reading from chapter 8 of Revelation gives you a few hints as far as these merchants of the earth. You read the 23rd chapter of Yeshayahu, gives you then important information of the merchants of the earth. When you read then the 18th chapter of Revelation, gives you also hints of the merchants of the earth. So then each of these layers, if you are familiar with the structuring of the original language of Hebrew, you begin your quest, understand they have a piece of this information that lines up perfectly. Then you can evaluate the steps of formation on then how these great merchants of the earth becoming later on influential. Now, if you are those kinds of people that do not understand the reflected prophecies, then you won't ever have the understanding of these layers from the time Daniel spoke, the actual prophecies that had taken place, and then the reflection in the future. So then, the newspapers of the world has given us a tour of China and the deals they are making, and these deals are directly related with the great market of the West known as Dragon Mart. Now, South Africa is also having a spotlight of their own. They are obviously holding a gathering regarding then the World Wildlife Conference open South Africa. So then, the conferences that are taking place around the world, some of these is then related with the countries of the BRICS. So the deal of the whole situation is dealing with trade, dealing with military, and dealing then with the environment. So if you put together the nations of the BRICS, you find then the most important and hot topics of the world are being concentrated in these countries. Now the situation is in what level these situations are then repeating themselves as far as the Cold War. It's not only lining up the nations and then doing what the world then demands as far as environmental, as far as the economical side of it, as far as the military and protection. There are these steps of formation and understanding a Cold War scenario brought because of this transitional time. Now, if you understand Daniel at the 11th chapter, you find a section of Daniel giving you then a discrepancy of systems during the time when John was the president in the 60s. You find the United States leading in a certain way and the Socialist Party leading another way. So then there was a Cold War going on from socialists and Democrats. Well, back then we understand that the Democrats are Republicans because of the way they wanted things done. We know that the West had its way. During this time is the reverse. The socialist group is taken over. However, because of these, the West is not only going to sit around and watch they doing what they want to do. Must have a Cold War generated because of these transitional times. As a transition from the first to the second, and that's why then, for instance, Cuba was then under the embargo, because there was a military line with it, and also the economics of other countries, the involvement of Africa, and de la Revolución también are also involved with these situations. So since Daniel gives us very important clues as far as the wordings in Hebrew used, you find then the netzer of these systems when it relates with the line of the Gentiles is explaining of systems being then reused as they were used in the past. So later I'm going to evaluate these more, because this particular point of this first transaction, or then this first transition, related with then the times of the past and the times of the 60s and then our times. Those times are repeating themselves. Those events are repeating, but not on the way of the United States, but on the way of the socialists. So as the scripture described, very precisely, step by step, so it is taking place. So please stay tuned, much more coming up.